Good evening, and welcome to the scoping meeting for the Legacy Highlands project located within the sphere of influence of the City of Beaumont. I'm Carol Kendrick, the project planner, and tonight's scoping meeting is intended to describe the proposed project, provide information regarding the CEQA and environmental impact report process, and to obtain input on the scope of the environmental impact report. This project was submitted to the city on May 16th of 2022 and included a specific plan, a tentative tract map, a general plan amendment, a pre-zone, an annexation, and a development agreement. We do have the applicant's environmental consultant, Ross Geller, with Applied Planning here that will do a presentation. We also have the city's peer review consultant here as well. And at this point, I will turn it over to Ross to go through his presentation.
There you go.
So as Carol mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss the scoping of the environmental document for the Legacy Highlands project. I'm going to go over a little bit about the project, a little bit about the process, and then we can talk about any other issues that come up tonight. The real purpose of this meeting is to get public input early in the process and to make sure that the scope of the environmental document is adequate for the project. As everyone knows, in California, the California Environmental Quality Act requires that any discretionary approvals be considered, their environmental impacts be considered as part of the public discourse. And the purpose of the environmental impact report is to provide detailed information about the project and its impact on the environment for both the public to understand the impacts and also the decision makers when they're considering the project. The NOP starts the process. It's called the Notice of Preparation. Starts the process, and that was issued, I believe it was on August 6th. Before I get into the project per se, I wanted to go over roles and responsibilities because it sometimes gets muddled. It gets muddled in public hearings. The city is obliged to consider any proposal that comes before it. So the developer actually designs the project. In this case, he's designed building pads, and he is creating a specific plan to guide the future development of that project. City staff is obligated to review it, provide input, manage the environmental process, and make recommendations in terms of the staff report as it moves through the public hearing process. I'm obviously the environmental consultant, and my job is laser focus on the impacts of the project and disclose those impacts for the decision makers, and ultimately the decision makers, in this case the Planning Commission and the City Council, will have all that information before them while they evaluate and consider whether to approve or disapprove the project. In this case, Legacy Highlands industrial specific plan encompasses a total of 142 acres. It's basically the extension of Portero Boulevard to the south into the hills. The project is situated between Lamb Canyon and La Borda Canyon to the west. Here's an overview of the project site, and you can see that Portero Boulevard forms the eastern boundary. I summarize this table so everyone understands what we're talking about. The proposed development is proposed to be done in 2 phases. The first phase is a 140-acre phase that's along 4th Street, and it encompasses 92 acres of industrial, up to 4.1 million square feet of industrial warehouse, industrial uses, and 13 acres of commercial, about 147,000 square feet of commercial along the frontage there. The remainder of the project, as we get into the phase 2, will encompass, the phase 2 area encompasses 663 total acres, but of that, 595 are going to remain in open space, and that's mostly the hilliest part in the southern portion of the site. And then about 663 acres of industrial, which equates to approximately 16 million square feet of industrial uses, 600 acres of open space, and 16 acres of right-of-way for Potrero Creek. This is the Phase 1 development. You can see 4th Street to the bottom. And so this is between 4th Street, adjacent to Potrero. The shopping center would be fronting on Potrero, and the 2 industrial buildings behind it. The Amazon facility is immediately to the east. The Phase 2, as I mentioned, this site plan doesn't show the whole property, it just shows the areas that are going to get developed, but there's, like I said, there's 595 acres of open space south of this area that will remain as open space. As Carol mentioned, there's a number of discretionary actions that are going to be considered as the project moves to the public hearing stage, and they include certification of the EIR. The project needs an amendment to the land use element of the general plan. It's going to modify some portions of the mobility element in terms of connections and roadway classifications. The city is going to have to adopt the Legacy Highlands specific plan, provide pre-zoning to the site, provide approval of an annexation through LAFCO, and there's tentative parcel maps and a development agreement that also go along with the project. Most scoping meetings that I go to, there's a limited number of issues that are going to be addressed in the document, and that's a product of the initial study and demonstrating within the initial study that some of these areas of focus don't need to be followed through in the EIR. In this case, these are all the issues. We're not skipping any issue. It's a full scope EIR, and I'm not going to read them to you, but those are the areas, the topical issues that will be addressed in this environmental impact report. In terms of the process, this is the first meeting on the project. It's really intended to focus on the scoping of the environmental document. The notice of preparation was prepared on September 6th, and comments are, if you have comments on the NOP or any portion of this presentation, I believe the city is going to allow comments through September 16th, actually. It's been extended because there was a snafu at the county clerk's office. So it's through the September 16th. It was issued August 6th, so it's been out there for a little bit. Once the environmental impact report is completed, it'll be provided to the public and decision makers, and it will be available at City Hall for review and on the city's website, and that's normally a 45-day period. And this is a complete guess, but I assume that that's going to happen sometime in late fall, early winter 2022. That's just a guess at this point. From that, the public's going to be invited to provide comments to the city on the contents of the EIR, and we are obliged to respond to every one of those comments within a document called the final EIR, and then notices will be available at the normal place where notices are provided by the city of both the Planning Commission and the City Council meeting. That concludes my presentation. I left Carol Kendrick, the planning manager's email and her phone number up there if you have any questions after this meeting. And if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer right now, I'm more than happy to do it once I turn around.
Actually, Ross, what we'll do is we'll have anyone that wants to speak come up and speak on the microphone so that we can get that on the record. But what I'd like to reiterate is this is a public meeting. We are streaming. Sorry about that. So I just want to reiterate, this is a public meeting. We do encourage the community input. This is being streamed on the city's YouTube page for viewing. We are accepting comments in person and then also call-in participation by calling our phone number 951-922-4845. Anyone that wishes to comment, they will be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise authorized. Before we start calling up comments from the members and the public, I do want to put on the record that I have received a couple of phone calls from residents just asking for more information on the project and expressing concern regarding traffic and air quality issues. I have advised them to, put those comments in an email, something that we can add into the public record, and did let them know that the city does update the website regularly. The project information is up on the website, and again, my information is on the planning department's webpage. You can email or call with questions or comments. So at this time, I'd like to ask, is there anyone that would like to speak? We'll just take turns if you want to come up and just state your name for the record, and then.
Jeffrey Wilson, 343 Calvert Park, Beaumont. And this isn't going to take very long because I feel about Legacy Highlands exactly how I felt about Summit Station. I think I probably spoke to you about it. And Beaumont is going to be surrounded by enormous warehouses. Trucks are going to be parking everywhere. Truck traffic will be excessive and dangerous. Air quality will be deadly, and I mean deadly. Minimal tax dollars and low-paying jobs are not worth the damage to the countryside. The city plan is pretty much worthless as it can be flipped at any time from residential to industrial, just like that. It's just a worthless piece of paper. I've seen it. I was handed a copy by the outgoing city manager, and I mean, it's just not worth the paper it's printed on. We don't want to be surrounded by these grotesque warehouses. They can go out in the desert somewhere on the 10 freeway and still fulfill their purpose and not be choking everybody to death and running people over. Anyway, as I say, for the same reasons as we don't want Summit Station, which is even closer to the center of Beaumont, we do not want this thing called Legacy Highlands. I mean, what a legacy, indeed. It's a diabolical project, and we don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience like to speak? Come on up. Just state your name for the record.
Pat Wayne. I'm a Beaumont resident for the last 7 years. I also spoke to the Beaumont Summit Station. Exactly what he said, same issues. Those issues are not going to go away. The EIR, we know what it's going to say about air quality, traffic, etc. I feel like our area is being targeted for all these warehouses. Well, the whole Imperial Valley has been seriously looked at in this way. And again, the city plan has been revised once already with all of the zoning of these parcels of land, and it was the way it is for a reason, because you took into consideration all of these issues, and the very things that drew us to this area from Orange County are starting to be compromised. And we really appreciated the ruralness of the area and the open space. I'm not against warehouses. Like he said, there's other areas rather than right on top of our city. And I think at some point, calling a moratorium on these warehouses and guiding them to other places is a good idea. So I just want to voice my concern too. I know that both the Democratic Club and the Republican Club in Four Seasons were in total agreement on these warehouses. We have been talking to each other for a while, so it's a nonpartisan issue for our city. We just all feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name's Pete Sierra. I've been a resident here in Beaumont, California for the last 20 years. I actually came from San Bernardino, California, where there's a plethora of warehouses. Just like the young lady who just spoke, that's the main reason. Well, the murder rate and the warehouses are a large reason why myself and my family decided to move out to Beaumont. Beautiful place. I love this community, been active in this community. I've been a baseball manager for the last 5 years. I go out and canvass, try to get folks elected to local office. I am an active member within this community. I cherish this community. The reason why, just like I stated earlier, the reason why we moved out here was to get away from the warehouses, get away from the traffic. My wife and I were just lucky enough to buy our very first home on the other side of Beaumont. We lived on this side of Beaumont for the last 20 years. We moved over to the other side. We looked extremely hard to trying to find a house under $500,000. It's very difficult to find a house for under $500,000. We did not find a house underneath $500,000, but from what I understand, we want to build warehouses within our community to try to attract business here so we don't have to drive so far to go to work. $17 an hour will not cover a $500,000 mortgage. It's a fact. I mean, if somebody can prove me wrong on that, it'd be excellent to see. We do not want to be Moreno Valley or San Bernardino or Fontana. We get it that they already have the warehouses established there. We as residents have never once requested that. And we truly hope that we can overturn this situation and that you folks would listen to our concerns here for the air quality, just as everybody else has stated. My son's 8 years old. I don't want him growing up in a city like I grew up in San Bernardino. We have a dozen kids hanging out in the neighborhood every single night. Come on, drive by my neighborhood. I live off of in the Ridgeview community. Come out, you're gonna see us. We hang out. I put out the basketball court so the kids can play out there. But we have an eyesore right across the way of the warehouse, Amazon warehouse being built there. My heart would break if we saw millions of square feet of warehouses built out there. Another thing that I'd like to touch on, actually, you know what? I covered everything that I would like to touch on. Thank you folks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other audience members? Okay, I know we have 2 callers on the line, so Nicole, if you want to send the first one through. Nicole, we're ready for a caller if you want to patch one through. While we're waiting for the caller, I do want to let the public know that we also have the Assistant Public Works Director and our the Fire Marshal's Office on the virtual the virtual meeting, so they are listening to the comments as well. Thank you for your patience while we work on getting these callers through.
Caller,
Hello?
can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. Say when.
Go right ahead.
Okay. The first thing is you got to do a better job with these phone calls. There's no way you should be waiting like this. Okay. The first thing warehouse developers should do when they attempt a warehouse project is to display on all their advertisements.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead. Mr. Roy, you'll have to
Can you hear
mute
me?
your YouTube audio.
You can hear me?
Because it's looping
I'm
through.
getting a tape delay. I'm getting a tape delay.
Go right ahead. Yes, you'll have to mute
Okay,
your YouTube video.
Why is this is unacceptable.
You got to do a better job with these phone calls.
I mean, it's unacceptable.
Mr. Roy,
No way you should be treating us like this.
Developers should do when they attempt.
Mr. Roy, you have to mute your YouTube video.
On all their advertisements.
Okay, I need to mute?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Roy, you'll have to mute your YouTube audio.
Okay.
I'm getting a tape delay.
Okay, just a second.
I'm getting
All
a
right,
tape
let me,
delay.
where's the mute button on the
You'll
YouTube?
have to mute your YouTube video. I'm not sure exactly. It should be on the bottom bar somewhere.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. You can start over from the beginning.
Okay, thank you for your patience. All right, this is Ron Roy, Fairway Canyon. The first thing warehouse developers should do when they attempt a warehouse project is to display on all their advertisements, presentations, and studies the following warning label. This project will cause cancer and lung disease in sensitive receptor individuals and communities, as well as other negative health effects. Why? Because the oversaturation of warehouses and their ozone and particulate emissions, which cause cancer and lung disease, are ruining the health of not only Beaumont residents, but the millions of people who reside in the Inland Empire. The warehouse spread can no longer go unchecked. Similar to how the tobacco industry evolved its regulatory control, warehouses need to be heavily regulated and no longer allowed to proceed without the complete eradication of their pollution and other negative effects. The pushback against warehouses is becoming widespread. For example, a 1,000-foot buffer rule has been attempted at the state level, held up only by opposition by the California Chamber of Commerce. Do chamber members even know that their monthly dues are paying for the lowering of their property values, blight, and contributed to an unprotected workforce? Numerous cities have passed moratoriums and are considering the 1,000-foot buffer as well. Even Beaumont officials are considering the buffer. Like the tobacco industry, warehouses need to be curtailed and even banned because their harm to communities far outweighs alleged benefits. Secondly, Beaumont needs to have a balance of land uses. This project will forever alter the balance. If future warehousing is approved, Beaumont will be known as a warehouse town rather than a town with a few warehouses. The warehouses in South Beaumont should not expand south of Potrero Boulevard. After City Council warehouse approvals thus far, I estimate that there's already over 10 million square feet of warehouses approved. That's enough. The scale of this project at over 2 square miles is so overwhelming, it will forever scar the last remaining rural acreage in South Beaumont, an area which provides open space and rural residential protections and is also near the Riverside County Multi-Species Habitat Preserve. Balanced land use also affords Beaumont to buffer against a downturn in any land use sector, such as the contraction of warehousing and logistics. Thirdly, the economic effect of these warehouse monstrosities on the labor force is devastating and must be reformed. Warehouses create a disposable labor force with a 107% employee turnover rate in Riverside County. Workforce protections need to be put in place, such as a minimum $20 wage, set hours, child care, overtime, benefits, paid leave, and prohibit any task which is reasonably expected to lead to long-term health problems. Also, design plans must ensure that the interior layouts provide adequate necessities such as climate control, restrooms, bathing, child rearing, bike racks, and break areas and other necessities. Thank you for your time.
Rudy, you can send in the next caller. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. There's no feedback, right?
Correct, no feedback.
All right, great. Just wanted to check. Good evening. Thank you. My name is Sean Sylvan. I'm speaking on behalf of Californians Allied for Responsible Economy, or CARE California, this evening. We've recently spoken on the Beaumont Summit Station as well, and with similar sentiments. So I'd just like to acknowledge that and acknowledge the continuity of these projects for Beaumont. CARE California is an organization representing the community, and our goal is to see development projects across California, Southern California, minimize environmental and public health impacts. And importantly, to the point of the man who spoke before me, to ensure that community benefits are real, that we're including the advancement of the cause of the skilled construction workforce, which is a unique and invaluable field. Obviously, I think we would all agree that provides the engine for so much of this state's robust economic growth. Now, as a community coalition group, though, we're interested in the public's health and safety first and foremost. This includes the health and safety of construction workers, as I said, but also members of the community, many of whom have spoken about this here or at other times. And our community in Beaumont and throughout the Inland Empire is dealing with this same warehouse concern. So we have a particular interest in construction-related environmental issues, including air pollution, noise, greenhouse gas emissions, and on-site soil contamination and hazardous materials. So as we know that all those issues are obviously at stake when you build a warehouse, we hope that the EIR will comprehensively address those issues, in fact. And in closing, we firmly believe that the decisions that developers make have an enormous impact on our environment and community. So we just want to say we'll be watching the development of this project very closely. And thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Rudy, do we have any other callers on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay. Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak? At this point, I'll invite Mr. Geller up if he has any comments based on the, okay. So I would like to thank everyone for your participation tonight in this scoping meeting, and again, encourage you to provide comments to the planning department. You can email me at ckendrick@beaumontca.gov. My email is also on the city's website on the planning page, so you can click on that. And our phone number is also on the website. It is 951-769-8518. Sure, it's ckendrick@beaumontca.gov. This concludes the scoping meeting. Thank you again for your participation and have a good evening.